YouTube, what's going on? Andrew Darling here, Mr. Darling 4, and I wanted to give you my quick initial impressions of the Sony Xperia Z3 Compact. First of all, the size of the device, of course the build quality, we have the camera, charging, battery life, and then just something that is kind of just come to my mind after using this phone. It's a nearly stock experience, which is cool. The build quality in and of itself is something that I'm actually really coming to enjoy. I didn't initially appreciate, or maybe I should say I just wasn't a fan of glass on glass. I had the Nexus 4. I was just never a fan of that. And I don't really, I'm not completely changed or swayed away from thinking that glass on glass is not a smart design, but Sony's done it in a way that it's not too terrible. It's useful, and for me, it's working out pretty well. The camera, okay, there's actually three parts to essentially the camera. Really four if you include the software, which is pretty good. The front-facing camera, coming from the OnePlus One, the front-facing camera is not good. It's not as sharp, it's not as detailed. Forget that it's just not as large as the 5 megapixel shooter on the OnePlus One. It's just not quite as detailed. And I can put a couple photos up that show you the front-facing camera. I could probably do a comparison real quick of what they look like side by side between the OnePlus and this one. The other factor, of course, is the rear shooter. It is a 20.7 megapixel shooter, and it's really good. It's hit or miss depending on the situation, depending on if you take it off of the Superior Auto and put it on the manual mode, depending on if you know how to tweak the settings a little bit for exposure and brightness and white balance and all that fun stuff. The Superior Auto only shoots in 8 megapixels, but for most stuff that I've done, that's been more than sufficient. And that was something I was very skeptical about before getting the phone. The third part here for me is the physical camera button. Having a physical shutter button again is something that you don't appreciate until you get it back. I haven't had one since the original G2, the HTC G2. So that's a huge deal for me. It's been very cool to just have that physical button. And it actually makes taking front-facing selfies easier. Now, I've tried it both ways as far as with the on-screen button and this one. But it's just kind of fun. Charging was another issue. So in order to charge it with the USB, as you guys can tell, it's the IP, I believe it's 86. Certified, so you have to actually take this off in order to get in there and charge the device. So what I did is I went and I picked up the Sony, the official magnetic charging dock. This piece here is actually very light, so when you plug in the micro USB here to the back, there's just not a lot holding it down. So if you go in the morning to grab your phone and lift it up, you're gonna pull that with you. So charging for me has been sufficient. The actual cord that came with the Z3 Compact is it's a 1 amp wall port with a USB cord, and it took about 3 hours and 20 minutes to charge from 1% full with, I mean, very minimal use. Maybe a grand total of 7 or 8 minutes of screen on time throughout that 3 hours and some change, because I was trying to see how fast it charged. I have not tested to see how far this thing, how long it takes to charge this yet, but I will get into that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is something that is near and dear to my heart. I've talked about it in every video for every phone I've had, and that's battery life. So I did an entire video on the OnePlus One battery life, saying it was the best battery life I'd ever had on a phone, and I was just so impressed with it. The Xperia Z3 Compact has matched or exceeded the OnePlus in battery life for me. So if you look here, and this is real time, we're at 12 hours 47 minutes off the charger. And screen on time is at 6 hours and 13 minutes. Now, I don't know if that focused in or not, but take my word for it. It's at 6 hours, 13 minutes, and 28 seconds. This is what does it, though. The actual, the rest of the system, if you look, the system and the OS are at 9 and at 6%. So there's a reason that the Sony Z3 Compact is going to get so much better battery life. It's because it's keeping everything else in check. The phone is being allowed to sleep when it needs to sleep, and that is very, very important. So these have just kind of been my initial thoughts, talking about the build quality, talking about the camera, talking about charging, talking about battery life. I am so happy with this phone so far. Having this phone, having a phone that is what I consider normal size. It is pocketable. It is holdable. I mean, I don't even think holdable is a word, but I really love having a small device again. It is great. I really enjoyed the OnePlus One. I did. It was a phenomenal phone, and it still is a phenomenal phone. But here's the cool part. They have mostly the same internals. They have the same 801. They have the same CPU, GPU. The only difference, the compact has 2 gigs of RAM, whereas the OnePlus had 3. But overall, I like this package better in that it's smaller. Would I love to put CyanogenMod on here? Yes, I would. Sony adds some value to it in their software, in how well it sleeps, but then as well, the camera app is pretty solid. I haven't messed with any of the other Sony suites yet, but like I said, I'll get into all of that. This is just my initial thoughts. YouTube, I appreciate it. What questions do you have about the Z3 Compact? I'm sure you have some, as I know a lot of sites did a quick video or they did a quick written review, but they didn't really cover it how maybe you wanted it to be covered. So let me know what you think, and I look forward to working with you. I'll talk to you soon, and like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Take care, YouTube.